Good afternoon. This is the September work session for the Cobb County School District. I'm now calling our meeting to order and ask that you join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. And now, Mr. Doyle, do we have any public comments?
We have one speaker, Mr. Chair. Connie Jackson will discuss balanced calendar. How many minutes can we allot?
Let's give her 4 minutes.
Ooh, that's a long time. I don't really have that much to say. Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, school board members, esteemed cabinet of very special people, and my former principal who left. But I come to you today to talk about the same thing that I really like to talk about, the balanced calendar. I've been out in over 30 schools since school began, and I hear the same thing. Please, please tell us that we're going to keep the balanced calendar. Teachers have various reasons for wanting to keep the balanced calendar, but it all comes down to the same thing. We need it. It's good for the students. The teachers see that the students need a break right about then. They've gotten into the groove, but they're ready. They're ready for some time off. Every year we won't have a hurricane to get a little break, hopefully. But we will need that time for students to regroup, get some time, and be ready and fresh to come back. But teachers also need it because right about then is when they need time to grade all those papers. In high school particularly, they get some pretty lengthy papers and projects. I know because my senior is working on several every night for hours, as long as I make him. But it's important. In elementary schools, they need time to look through those things. They don't just grade things on a Scantron anymore. You don't just run them through. You have to sit there and you have to really work with them. They also need time to plan. No longer are the days when we had a little book and we could just write a couple notes in there. Plans now are lengthy and they take pages to plan for a couple days. So teachers need that time. They need that time to collaborate. Believe it or not, teachers are taking their vacation time and getting together to do the collaborative planning that they need. So teachers aren't all just out running around taking a vacation, but they are doing schoolwork. They are getting things done. And that is why that week that we get in the balanced calendar for September and February are so needed. So I urge this board and this school superintendent to please continue the balanced calendar when it's brought forth next month. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, now moving along. Next, we have the approval of the minutes from the August 24th, 2017 board meeting. And if there are no objections, okay, they are approved. Next, Mr. Ragsdale, we are now ready for your report.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chair, members of the board, I'm going to ask Mary Elizabeth Davis to come forward and bring about an early learning update, which is basically the early kindergarten program that we started. This is not going to be a lengthy, detailed report, but we did want to recognize some very important people affiliated with the project and share some press as well with that.
Well, good afternoon, Mr. Chair, members of the board, and Mr. Superintendent. It really is my distinct honor to stand before you today and give you a glimpse into the early kindergarten model that was uniquely designed this past year and launched on May 31st for a group of students, rising kindergarten students, to begin their kindergarten journey on May 31st. I actually think it would be most appropriate to start with a segment that aired on the news featuring this particular program. So if we could, let's go ahead and roll to that segment.
Heading to school for the first day in Cobb County. Channel 2's Liz Art's live in Marietta. And Liz, some kindergarten students started school extra early. They've actually been in class all summer.
Linda, they've been in class since May, but today they are already in the groove and ready to go with this new program that the district hopes will be a huge success.
She loves this because she gets the stimulation she needs, and yeah, it's been great. She loves it.
1, 2. It's a groundbreaking new concept called early kindergarten. Belmont Hills Elementary School in Cobb County is where 21 students started extra early on May 31st. The county created the program to give some of their youngest students in this Title I school a 2-month head start. School leaders told us it gives the students access to early academics as well as working together and playing in groups. These students will stay together in one classroom after the regular school year starts to see if they outperform their peers. If so, they'll look to expand the program.
We wanted to take advantage of the possibility of parents being willing to bring their students to us early so that we can kind of range them in on that preparedness so that once we get full into motion of kindergarten school year, we know where those students are.
And if the program works the way that district leaders hope that it will, they hope that they can qualify for Georgia lottery money.
So we do have some very special people in the audience, and I'm actually going to begin by introducing them to you, but then I'm going to take a moment and share some of the early indicators of success from this particular design. Now, keep in mind, we discussed the early kindergarten model back in the spring, but this was 7 weeks of intensive literacy instruction aimed at introducing students to the already rigorous kindergarten standards, but allowing there to be more time and space in order to accomplish kindergarten level skills. So let me actually introduce to you the most brilliant person behind this work, the one who really did make it happen, and that is the early kindergarten, now kindergarten teacher, Ms. Nerly Alexander. Please congratulate her. Will you stand for us, Ms. Nerly? Now, Ms. Alexander does have a remarkable tag team partner in that classroom, the paraprofessional Ralph Kendrick, who could not be here today. And she's accompanied by her principal, Dr. Ashley Campoli, and Mr. Christian Suttle, the assistant superintendent for Belmont Hills Elementary School. And of course, Deputy Superintendent Alice Stouter has been a remarkable leader behind this work that has happened at Belmont Hills. But there's more. Keep in mind that this was intended to demonstrate that when students are provided more time and opportunity to learn grade level standards, they can excel at extraordinary levels and at an extraordinary pace. So let me introduce you to one child who actually began in the early kindergarten program with 0 recognition of letters or numbers. In the initial FRA, which is the foundational reading assessment that this child took, they scored a 5. Keep in mind that the objective by the end of kindergarten is to be at a 32. This child today is at a 20. Do you see the type of growth that occurred? And we are only in the middle of September for a child who had no letter or number recognition when starting the early kindergarten program. This would have been accomplished by December. Now imagine what we will accomplish by December. There are other students who actually entered into early kindergarten with more experience in literacy. Another student actually began at a 48 in that FRA assessment. That's actually above kindergarten proficiency. But that child today is reading at a first grade level book. She has already grown 35% on that foundational reading assessment, and she was able to begin sight words, blending consonants, blending words, and then beginning independent reading on her own with 7 weeks of additional instruction. Overall, on the first assessment in kindergarten this year in August, after 10 days of kindergarten instruction in August, students were 87% proficient, outperforming last year's kindergartners by 21 absolute points. And on the standardized FRA, this particular class that is now kept together in a kindergarten class scored 36% higher than last year's kindergartners in the first assessment window. I really do believe that the true indication of long-lasting success will begin to be realized in December and then as we head into April and May. But these early indications show that when you dedicate, first of all, incredible teaching talent, and you partner that with a very strong instructional model focused on literacy and student progress monitoring, you can show accelerated gains in reading proficiency, and that's what we're doing in Cobb County classrooms. This model was very specifically designed in Cobb County, and I have to credit Courtney Jones, our supervisor for early learning, for the architecture behind the components of this model. She was supported by Diana Denton in all the student progress monitoring design, and Missy Morse and Jennifer Lawson are overseeing the model as it unfolds and prepares for replication. That concludes my report today, Mr. Superintendent, and I am available for any questions.
Yes, so I think a couple of points to tack on here. One is it's very easy to forget about the rigorous standards that are applied to kindergarten. Okay, so for kindergartners to move on and be able to show mastery of standards, I think it's very easy to forget that those are also at the kindergarten level. So when we talk about kindergartners coming to us ill-prepared for school, as we saw many of these students, for whatever reason, our job is to educate them. And so to be able to have 7 additional weeks and to be able to see the benefit that has shown, were just those examples, 36% growth over last year, kindergartners that did not have that early learning option. I think I think it just goes without saying that this is a no-brainer as far as helping us to more and better prepare students for entering into their K-12 career. Secondly, I think what it also shows is the example of the student that came in already at proficiency of kindergarten standards. This is not just for ill-prepared students. This is for every student. So when we start talking about scaling this, we're going to start talking about scaling it everywhere, not just in schools that predominantly show kindergartners coming to us with a lack of preparation to enter kindergarten, but students that are already experiencing those interactions that they need to be experiencing before coming to kindergarten, that it also gives them a boost as well. So I think those are two very important points that we need to make, because obviously we're already seeing, as you know, we do proof of concepts, and this is the one that we're doing here, and it's already showing the data of proving that this theory holds water. Okay, so as we start talking about moving forward, we're going to start talking about scaling it on a district-wide at some point in time. We're not saying, next year we're going district-wide. We'll need a minute to accomplish that. But we are talking about ultimately having this program district-wide as an option. And again, it's an option for parents to take advantage of, because I think everything that we can do that furthers our mission of one goal, and that's student success, everything that we can do that adds to that student success and the ability of every student to make that success, it's incumbent upon us and required upon us to be able to provide those opportunities. So thanks for that, and thanks to everybody from Belmont Hills. It's a team approach there too. The video, I know this was a small portion of the video, that we had a much longer video that we took. And you could see the interaction of the teacher and the parapro, of how they interacted with the class. And my interaction with the class was able to see those students ran the gamut. They really did. There were some students that already had letter recognition. They could count to 10, but there were some students that had none of that, as demonstrated by the score of 5 on the FRA. So that being said, I'm very excited about what the accomplishments and the outcomes of this proof of concept is going to show. Thanks.
All right, thank you. Dr. Davis, sounds great. I think Ms. Thayer would like to make a comment.
First of all, I'd like to begin by commending everyone involved. Belmont Hills, we're always proud of you and everything that happens there, particularly our Shining Star teachers. It's such a great thing. Chris, when you're talking about continuing this, are you talking about just the summer model?
Yes, obviously the flip side of the coin is the pre-K model, which we're running at Hendricks. But going into that proof of concept, we know that that's the limiting factor for that is space.
Right.
So there's no way we can scale pre-K in this district the way that we're currently number one funded, but obviously the facilities are laid out. So this is the model that we are talking about scaling, is the early kindergarten.
Well, that was one of the things I was going to say. I think it's wonderful that we're looking at challenging all students regardless, but particularly those that do come to us with a 5. They won't make it without something like this. We've proven that again and again and again. So it's extremely critical that we get them. The others will probably make it, but it's essential that we get those. And in schools where the greatest need for those students are the ones that are going to be the most crowded. So even if we have to look at partnerships with local churches or things of that nature, if there's a space issue, I hope we will keep that box open and thinking about alternative things, but not letting space be something that stops us from growing these programs.
Right. And to that point, on this model, space is not an issue because they're
During
coming
the
before
summer.
everybody else is
Right.
in school. So it's a truly win-win for the district. It's a win for the parents, and it's a win, most importantly, for the students.
But if we find that we could expand it even lengthen it into the school year, I feel like with resources in our communities, we could come up with space if we needed to. Thanks.
That's two different models, though. Yeah.
Thank you, Ms. Thayer. Mr. Banks.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Several questions. One is, were all these English language students?
Oh, were they all English language learning students? Actually, no. We had many students who had native English speakers in their home and many who did not. It was a very nice mix.
Okay, so were there any qualifications, or just they were going to be attending?
It was attendance zone qualification only, rising kindergartners.
Okay. How did you manage to accommodate the low spectrum students versus the high spectrum students in the same classroom?
So our teachers in Cobb County are so brilliant, and their ability to identify students' readiness levels and their opportunities to grow, that is the talent of teaching. And Mrs. Alexander has been a pioneer in how we can leverage 7 additional weeks of instruction and very quickly, using some tools that were designed for this early kindergarten model, assess a student's readiness and where their gaps are. And what we actually see is some of our most talented, intellectually talented students have the weakest reading skills because they're great memorizers. They can memorize everything, and you then miss that their actual foundational reading skills are very weak. And our kindergarten teachers are masters at being able to distinguish, really, are those foundational reading skills solid, and are they prepared to continue to advance? What Mrs. Alexander was able to accomplish in the 7 weeks of early kindergarten was a wide range of students with different experiences, many of them actual with some pre-K experience the previous year, but everyone is prepared differently. And Mrs. Alexander was able to use small group instruction, individualized instruction, some whole group instruction, and really able to meet every single student where they are. And for the student who was already outperforming most kindergartners, was able to raise them to first grade level in the first 7 weeks. So I think that really falls in the talent of our teachers. It's the expertise of the profession, and Mrs. Alexander is just a remarkable example of what can be possible.
Now, this was a 7-week program. When
Yes.
did it actually start?
May 31st was the first day.
Okay. So was there, that's... is
Pretty
that
much right up to school starting.
Okay, and they started actually kindergarten on July the 31st?
They
So it
did
was not a-
officially enroll for kindergarten on July 31st, yes.
Okay. I know we have some other Title I schools that do summer programs. What's the plans on implementing this concept into the other Title I schools since we have the money for that?
So the opportunity to provide students additional learning time during the summer is not a unique or novel concept. The unique concept here was the intense structure and the actual architectural design being very closely linked to literacy expectations in kindergarten. And so there was the opportunity to learn the social elements of school in early months of May and June. And so therefore, when you started on day one, you knew how school worked as a 5-year-old, and you jumped right into learning activities right out of the gate on July 31st. That, as Mr. Ragsdale indicated, is something we will now look to replicate at a variety of schools.
Okay.
Some title and some non-title.
Yeah, I know that Dr. Jackson over at Sedalia Parks implemented the summer program for, I won't call it pre-K, but it was a summer program for kindergarten children, and had a great success with it. In fact, she did it 4 weeks. I think she's looking at doing 6 weeks. This program is 7 weeks, so there's not much difference there. It's probably just a matter of how we implement the curriculum, but evidently the success is there, the capabilities are there. Now, the other thing is the funding. If we go to all the schools, all the elementary schools and offer this, we don't have the money for it. So what do we need to do in order to get a program like this funded by the state?
Well, we are in early conversations with DCAL, which is the Department of Early Childhood and Learning, which is a state agency that governs all pre-K programming, to talk about innovative models for early learning opportunities. And I'll point to the leadership that Courtney Jones has provided for our organization in order to establish the traditional pre-K model at Hendricks, but really start to push in on DCAL's constraints in how that gets structured and looking for opportunities to expand the definition of early learning. So there's not a short answer on that, but it's work that we're engaged in.
I'll jump in as well to not miss the opportunity to throw out an advertisement about how K-12 does no longer gets any lottery funding. So one of the potentials for a funding source for this program is lottery, because lottery does fund pre-K programs. So the program at Hendricks is being funded by lottery. The program at Belmont Hills is not. Now, if we get down to the brass tacks of it and start comparing ROI, I think we'll come up with a pretty plain to see answer as to what should be funded with lottery funds if we're talking about true pre-K, because this is pre-K in a sense that it is early kindergarten. Mm-hmm. But I would strongly urge that the funding of the lottery funds should be able to be accessed for this type of program, should you be able to show success. Now, I'm all about the proof's in the pudding. You know, I do not agree that just because you come up with a pre-K program, you should be able to have access to lottery funds. I think you have to be able to show success for a pre-K program, just like public schools are held accountable to show various levels of success through whatever means that is. So I think that I'm not saying that anybody that wants to come up with some kind of new program should have access to lottery funds. What I'm saying is, if you're able to come up with a program and you're able to show success in the levels that we are, then I think that you should be able to access lottery funds, because that's what the intent is. For some reason, though, lottery funds have gone to the opposite ends of the spectrum. You've got pre-K that have access to it, and you've got higher ed through Hope Scholarship that have access to it. And somehow K-12 has been left out of the lottery funding mechanism. That would be the unpaid advertisement for additional lottery funding for K-12.
Well, the Department of Education doesn't have anything to do with pre-K, is that correct?
That's correct. It's a separate agency.
Okay. So we would have to go through what you call
DCAL, Department of
DCAL?
Early Childhood and Learning.
Okay, so they're the ones that we would have to get approval from, is that correct?
Yes.
For this. So my
Yes,
next question,
for funding.
and this will be my last question. What's our next step?
Well, again, I think we're showing early success through the data, and as we move forward, we will show continued success through additional data, as I have full confidence in Ms. Alexander is going to be able to do that, as she's already proven this far. But in all seriousness, we're looking to scale this district-wide. Now, this is not going to be next year we're going to start at 67 elementary schools. What we will do is we will be very strategic and deliberate in the next schools because obviously, as Ms. Thayer pointed out, we want to target those schools which need this additional level of preparation for entering kindergartners. That's our goal, is to help the students that are going to become Cobb County School District students. So as we look to scale this, we will start that conversation early in the year because obviously, as you mentioned, it's a budget implication. We have to make sure that we have prioritized funds accordingly to programs that are going to yield the biggest benefit for students.
I said that was going to be my last question, but we have numerous Title I schools. Are we able to implement this, say, next year in all of those Title I schools?
I can't answer that question right now. Number one, we want to see the exact ROI for this project, and then we will be more readily able to answer that question early next year.
But from a funding standpoint, we would have funding available as a result of Title I. We could do it next year if everything falls into place.
Well, you have to be very careful on supplementing and supplanting. So we will take those considerations into our decision-making process as we move forward. And then, we'll have to figure out exactly what implications there are with funding before we say, yes, we'll be able to use Title I funds, or no, we won't, but here's how we're going to reprioritize general funds in order to make it happen.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yep.
Thank you, Mr. Banks. Mr. Sweeney?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And first of all, congratulations to all those involved in the program. I mean, it's remarkable to see those results, and thank you for your efforts. I guess leveraging off Mr. Banks' comments on the funding, with regard to the lottery, would it be the expectation that the lottery funds would pick up 100% of the program costs, or do we have any idea?
I think it's premature to address that directly.
Yeah.
On the pre-K, the lottery funds pick up 100% unless you put your pre-K teachers on your salary, your district salary scale. And since every district has a different salary scale for Cobb County, it is above the state salary scale, and there was a small amount of district funds that were dedicated to that, but pretty small relative to the cost of running the program.
All right. And the other side is that I know that the federal funds are typically targeted grant funds and those types of things. Are there federal funds available for these pre-K programs?
So everybody's talking about pre-K and early learning, and every legislative body seems to have that as a priority. We're just waiting for the funding to still follow that.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Sweeney. I have a question. At the end of the 7 weeks, what kind of feedback do the parents get about the progress and that sort of thing? I don't guess it's a report card, but I was just wondering because here's the first opportunity to engage parents and they get them involved. And I was just wondering, if I was a parent of a child in this program, what would I see at the end of the 7 weeks before we start kindergarten?
So first, let me mention that the parent involvement in this summer environment was remarkable. And even when we were on site and there was some media interest in this story, parents came and one parent provided a testimonial even. And Mrs. Alexander, I need to tell you that when this design occurred, we approached Belmont Hills as pioneering this, and Mrs. Alexandra was like just jumping out of her seat to volunteer herself. Now, it was May, and not every teacher's jumping out of their seat to keep teaching for 7 more weeks. And she actually had a student who had been in the pre-K, their own pre-K program, who said after the early kindergarten experience that they learned more in those 7 weeks than they did the entire previous year. So there was a lot of parent investment in this. Specifically, we didn't have a structure that was formally designed to communicate progress throughout the 7 weeks. But Mrs. Alexander, as a great professional, was ongoingly engaged with parents and providing them just informal feedback. There was no report card. There was no student progress report that was officially sent and documented home, just more of the informal teacher providing feedback.
Well, again, thank you very much. Anyone else? Okay. Ms. Thayer, one more.
I just wondered if we could recognize Ms. Alexander with applause one more time, since we've given her so many accolades. But thank you.
Mr. Superintendent, it has been a pleasure to give this report, but what I do want to say before we conclude is I want to thank you and this board's vision for continuing to support not only our exceptional teachers and practitioners in the work that they do every day, but also increasing opportunities for our students to have access to high-quality learning. And this is just a perfect example of that. And I congratulate Belmont Hills for pioneering this concept for not only for this state, but for this country.
Yes.
Thank you, Dr. Davis. If this program had existed back when I was young, I would have only had to take kindergarten once. Seriously?
All right, Mr. Chair, members of the board, I'm going to ask Brad Johnson, our CFO, to come forward and talk about another proof of concept that we are doing considering credit card payments.
Well, good afternoon, Board. Mr. Chairman, Mr. Vice Chair, members of the Board, Mr. Superintendent. Several years ago, we began looking for ways to assist the principals and bookkeepers in our schools make their finance-related duties easier and more efficient, and at the same time, give our parents an easier way to process financial transactions at the school level. One of our solutions to assist the principals, bookkeepers, and parents is to implement credit cards as a form of payment for parents at the high school level in the initial phase of this project. Next slide. Some background on our school district. There are basically two pots of money that the schools utilize to fund their operations. At the county level, QBE funds and local property taxes are compiled in the budget each year, and these funds are equitably allocated to schools to fund school instruction programs and to fund school operations. Number two, at the school level, local school activity funds are managed by each school's bookkeeper. The Financial Services Division is extremely involved to assist schools in managing school activity funds by developing financial procedures and internal controls. Our division is also very involved in the selection of bookkeepers as well as the training and assistance for these positions during the school year. These local school activity funds consist of sources such as vending money, funds collected as a result of fundraisers, picture money, school club money, field trip collections, athletic collections, donations, cell tower money, lost and damaged textbooks, student dues monies, yearbook money, the list goes on and on. A further look at the background of financial operations in a school demonstrate just how integral the bookkeeper position is. An example of the scope of operations at a high school where there are 2,000 to 3,000 students show that this position is actually collecting money from each one of these students. And furthermore, each of these students may belong to a variety of clubs and activities where the money collected from them has to be meticulously tracked for each activity that each specific student is involved in. A further challenge is that for most school districts in the country, this money is currently collected in the form of cash and checks. We have recently completed the opening of school this year, and for high schools, most of them have a time period, some call it Go Day, where there are lines in the school where students and parents have had to wait for various school fees and clubs for the year, wait in line. So this discussion doesn't take very long for anyone to realize just how big a job and responsibility the principal and bookkeeper have to track these funds. It may be surprising for anyone to hear that the use of credit cards in school districts across the country is not necessarily the norm. While there has been computer software written to collect money for school lunch programs, and that is a practice that many school districts have employed for the past 10 to 15 years, an examination of current practices across the country for student activity fees show that credit cards is generally not used in a lot of cases. It's still cash and checks. So that being the case, the Financial Services Division continues to try to move ahead of the curve and has developed a project where we aspired to develop credit card payments for these student activity fees. In order to begin this project, we developed the details and programming surrounding this project and embarked on a proof of concept to see if this project can work. Next slide. The proof of concept development has had several components. First of all, we needed a computer software program that can handle this type of project. Our solution was to piggyback on the current MyPayment Plus platform that is currently used by the Food Nutrition Program. This seemed to be a logical solution since our parents are already familiar and comfortable with this program. We worked with MyPayments Plus and our current local school accounting software, we call it EPS, to build a file so these systems would interface, resulting in the recording of transactions in the appropriate school clubs and activities, and automatically record these transactions in the correct account codes. Furthermore, the transactions had to be routed so that we will receive the funds in the correct bank accounts and have reporting capability to track and reconcile all transactions at the end of each month. While parents can still make payments using cash and checks, the introduction of credit cards will give them another option that is extremely convenient and customer service friendly. With this introduction of electronic payments, safety is of paramount concern, so our internal compliance department has developed financial procedures and internal controls for the purposes of balancing and reconciling these electronic payments. Finally, this proof of concept has to be handled in such a way that this new process can be replicated to other high schools. In one sentence, the entire team involved has accomplished this and developed procedures where we are ready to implement credit card payments to all the other high schools in the school district in the current year. Next slide, please. A brief explanation of the posting process is as follows. In the MyPayments Plus, credit card transactions are created, information is transmitted to the bank, and deposits are posted to the school's accounts. Number 2, a transaction and deposit data file is compiled and transmitted on a daily basis. And finally, number 3, in the local school accounting software that we call EPS, systematic deposit receipts are created for all activities, and the software automatically places the funds in the correct EPS local school accounting software account. In other words, the team just saved our principals and bookkeepers a heck of a lot of time compared to before when they had to receipt transactions manually and concurrently. We gave our parents a really efficient and cool way of handling these payments. Next slide, please. Our proof of concept has involved 3 high schools, and we appreciate their participation. It's Alatoona High School, Principal John Kelly and Maria Surratt, the bookkeeper. Lassiter High School, Principal Dr. Chris Ritchie and Kelly Price, the bookkeeper. And Pope High School, Principal Tom Flugan and Emily Tilden, bookkeeper. In the case of Pope High School, the project started when Dr. Bob Downs was still a principal, and I want to recognize him for also his willingness to be in on this cutting edge when we started a couple years ago. All of these principals and bookkeepers went over and above to assist financial services in this proof of concept, and shows once again the team environment of our school district. I want to personally thank each person for their efforts to make our system a world-class school district. Next slide, please. So we had different phases of the project. So we had to start small. We want to make sure it works. Actually, we're dealing in actual money here. So phase 1, what we did was we took one high school, we took Pope High School, and we had a testing period in April through May 4th for only one high school, and we worked with them. And in this initial test, we tracked specific limited transactions for junior class dues, prom date tickets, and senior class dues. A total of $4,685 was processed accurately through the credit card system and into the EPS local school accounting software. Next slide. Since a limited test in phase 1 worked well at one high school, we proceeded to a more detailed test for phase 2 at multiple high schools. So in phase 2 in the proof of concept, our goal was to collect at the beginning of the school year student activity fees from parents and students at 3 high schools. Many high schools call this their go days. I know different schools have a different name for that. But in this phase, the credit card payment collection began on July 14th. Total fees collected from parents and students and into the EP student local school accounting software during just the 3 high school go days was $210,523. All total fees collected from the beginning of July 14th and to the present day today is $253,343. The procedures and the software performed at a very high level. We were pleased at the performance of the software. In order to give you a view of what the go day would have looked like had all schools had already been implemented on this software, our total would have been over $1.3 million, and that's what we would expect next year. Based on how bookkeepers previously manually handled cash and checks, the efficiency from this new procedure is profound. Next slide, please. There are some benefits to this new procedure. One of the tangible benefits of the credit card feature is that from these 3 high schools, and it's just these 3 high schools, has been the reduced number of armored car pickups. Prior to this procedure, on just the go days, the number of deposit bags picked up went from 28 bags last year to 9 bags this year. That's significant because the handling of cash and checks is a safety issue. Next slide, please. Phase 3 implementation. As a result of the success that we have had, the team's success, it is the current plan to implement all remaining high schools. We have already begun to plan the training for all remaining high schools during the period of October through December with the objective of implementing all high schools in the current school year. Next slide, please. As a result of the new credit card procedure, I was hoping that one of the bookkeepers might make the comment that this project had saved their lives. That would have been a bit hopeful that they would say that. They didn't. But they did say several things. They said things like game changer, it has simplified things, parent friendly, bookkeeper friendly, very convenient, perfect timing. So it appears that each of these 3 bookkeepers, as well as the principals, are team players, and they are innovative in their own right. Again, I want to personally thank them for participating in this project. We didn't make somebody do it. They wanted to do it. And in fact, all the schools have heard about this, and they all want to do this. This project will enhance how school bookkeeping is performed in not just our own school district, but will probably impact how other school districts across the country perform their bookkeeper function, because I bet that we'll be getting a lot of phone calls on this. As you can imagine, this type of large project has required an entire team of professionals to test and implement this new software program. I did invite staff from the financial services and business services teams, and it's been a real team project, interdivisional. And these are the real brains of the project. I get to stand up here and talk about it, but these are the people that are the real smart people, and I'd like to ask them to stand if they would. We have our Director of Internal Compliance, Debbie Randazzo. We have Suzanne Hatfield, Nancy Tolbert, Kathy Strudolph, Jeff Krim, Jeff Bolton from Business Services, Laura Huff, Rochelle Gross, and Wanda Walker. Mr. Chairman, this is our presentation for today, and I am available for questions.
Well, let's applaud first. Thank you, Mr. Superintendent.
Yeah, so let me just jump out there first and say that obviously I know how you guys feel as a board and the faith and confidence that we have in our financial services and in business services divisions. They both have numerous awards and that kind of thing, but I will also say that I can almost guarantee you that there is no other CFO that uses adjectives like cool in a presentation to the board. And at the same time, in all seriousness, now hear me, at the same time, there are, I'm sure, plenty of CFOs that use adjectives like cool that don't have the faith and confidence of the board and the supervisor. So in all seriousness, thank you guys for everything that you've done to make this happen, because, again, the importance of doing a proof of concept, obviously with $1.3 million, that's being handled in total in 16 high schools, transactions on Go Day. This makes it easier and more customer service oriented for our parents and students alike. So appreciate, Brad, you and your divisions doing this, and also John of Business Services in your division. So appreciate the teamwork to make this happen, because this is just a win-win for everybody involved. Thanks.
Thank you for those comments. Our team works really hard.
Well, thank you. We have a few comments. Mr. Banks?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Is this, do the parents have to, or the students have to actually show up to make these credit card payments?
No, they can do it from their home on their home computer.
So it's an online system?
Right. In fact, we took some pictures. Lassiter High School had long lines of people waiting to pay, and there was some pictures, but I couldn't put my hands on them. There was nobody there this time, and it was wonderful.
Okay.
It was wonderful. And the parents, I know they loved it. They had to have.
Well, I know the PTA uses a software package called Toolkit. Is this something very similar, or are you familiar with Toolkit? The PTAs use that.
Not familiar with Toolkit. We went with My Payments Plus because the parents are already familiar with that software because they do the school lunch programs on that, and they've been doing that for years. My Payments Plus was very gracious to work with us in this project in creating a file that we can interface, and it just worked wonderfully.
Another area that we have a lot of transactions is the ASP program in elementary schools. Are there any intentions of implementing this for the ASP programs?
We already have that for ASP program on My Payments Plus already.
So they can do that with
Yes, sir.
Credit card on? Okay.
Yes,
all
sir.
right. So we're ahead then.
We're getting better.
We're getting automated. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Banks. Ms. Thayer?
I just wanted to add my congratulations. You always are competent and diligent and all that, but taking the forefront, that's tremendous. I also wondered if we got parental input. I know you got school system, but did we get, because I would think parents were elated by this.
I didn't get parent input from this particular project, but we've had Lassiter going on credit cards for a while. We tried a process about 6 or 7 years ago, and it was very manual, and we kept it going. But when we did that project, I know the parents were thrilled with that. So that's one of the reasons Lassiter went first, because now we've got an automated system where the parents go online, they pay their club money, and it just knows where to post the account to what student, what club. It's amazing.
I guess we can assume they would have to be pleased. So
I would think that they would be very pleased.
Yeah. Yeah, this is great. You kind of hit your head and go, why haven't we been doing this for years? But congratulations for doing it. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Scamahorn.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and a job well done again, Mr. Johnson. A couple of quick questions. One is, if I didn't want to use the online services, can I still pay the old-fashioned way?
You can pay the old-fashioned way. You can go to the school and you can pay by cash. You can pay by check, and now you can pay from home with the credit card.
Okay. And if I wanted to pay with credit card while I'm at school, is there a machine or something there that I can use the credit card?
I haven't investigated that. This is a first step to paying at their home. I'm hoping that at some point in a later phase that people can pay on their phones.
Okay.
But we'll have to investigate that and explore that later.
Well, as a technology engineer and one that loves technology, I don't do online shopping or payment for the very reason that we know Equifax is in trouble. We can go right on back. And it's my humble opinion that the only reason why we're safe online shopping and paying bills is because so many people are doing it. I don't think the crooks can get to all of us, but they can get to a significant portion of us.
One of the things, if people do pay, these transactions are looked at on a daily basis in financial services. We know a lot about what's happening every day to these transactions, and we can see large anomalies that take place, and we have people that are looking at it. It's not perfect, though. Nothing's perfect.
Well, that's my point for sure, but I'm glad it's there. I'm not trying to throw water on a great idea, because that's what it's all about, is to have people have options and they can weigh the risk. You know, we do that when we get out of bed every morning. So That's not a problem. But I want to make sure there are other avenues for those that do have concerns.
Absolutely. They can keep paying like they always have.
Okay, so, so even if there is a way, even if there's not a credit card machine at each school, but that would be a good convenience, because if a parent happened to be at a meeting and they learn that they owe something, or they want to go ahead and get it paid, maybe I'll let them figure it out. So, but congratulations to you and your staff again. And I assumed you brought the whole staff because you all wanted more money, having done such a great job. So I hope not.
I did bring the staff because this staff has worked on this for literally 2 years, and
Yeah.
it doesn't sound, taking credit cards doesn't necessarily sound, we've used credit cards for years and years, but for school districts, it is innovative.
It's a big deal. Anyway, well, thanks again. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir, Mr. Scammahorn. Mr. Sweeney.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Let it be known that our CFO also uses wonderful as an adjective. Actually, Mr. Scammahorn hit on one thing, and is if we're going to use the card readers at the individual locations, will they have the EMV chips, the chip readers?
Let me just jump out here. We're not going down the path of taking credit cards at the school. That's an additional expense, and also, not to get too far in the weeds, but that requires a phone line for those cards, for the credit card machines to function, which we have gone away from. So to say that, though, to kind of further get into the weeds, again, if you've got a smartphone, you can get on the internet and you can do your payment there. So they could stand at the counter and be stepped through paying online. So, but yeah, we're not going to go down the card reader route for exactly why you mentioned.
I was kind of going down the rabbit hole there because it can get a bit expensive with all the machinery and everything. And then the other side on the merchant fees, are we discovering just in the short trial that we've had that the cost savings are there to, to balance out whatever the merchant fee discount may be?
Yeah, there are My Payments Plus fees, there are merchant fees that are interchange fees. We've had the school lunch program for years, and there's a convenience fee of 4.75% that if you choose to use this, that fee would be charged. But that charge is not a profit-making mechanism. That just covers the fees. And we know that pretty much covers all the fees from past experiences and other projects we've done.
So the net to the district will remain the same?
Yes.
Okay. And then, obviously, with the tests that you've done at the high schools, is this something that we would contemplate rolling out to the middle and elementary school levels too?
I need to talk with the superintendent first, but it sounds like it might be a plan. But we need to get the high schools done first. That's where a lot of transactions takes place. But I bet middle schools and elementary schools would like it as well.
Well, I commend your team. I think there's going to be a lot of families that'll be elated by this. And if you have any insight on how we can simplify the parents filling out the forms at the beginning of the school year, that should be next on the list.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Sweeney. Mr. Scammahorn, one more?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think Mr. Sweeney hit on the main part of it. I'll let it go. I think Mr. Sweeney got most of it. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Anyone else? Thank you, sir, for a very positive report.
Thank you, sir.
All right. And your team. All right. What's next? Board agenda items. Again, Mr. Ragsdale.
Yes, sir. Mr. Chair, members of the board, board agenda item number 1 is the monthly recommendation for authorization of school properties disposal. And the board has received that list electronically. Be happy to answer any questions.
Consent agenda. All right. Mr. Sweeney recommends for consent agenda.
And let's remember, as I always forget until we get to the night portion of these one-day meetings, we need to keep track of what's on consent. All right. I know you are. I always forget that.
All right.
All right. Agenda item number 2 is I'm going to ask Mr. John Adams to come and bring the next few, I believe.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Superintendent, Mr. Chair, members of the board, they say never to follow small children, cute animals, or Brad Johnson. So unfortunately, agenda item number 2, recommendation for the approval of a board resolution certifying the FY19 state capital outlay project application. The SPLOST team has been working very closely with the state DOE since April to prepare our FY19 capital outlay project application. Based on this application and dependent on the actual cost of the projects, the DOE will reimburse CCSD up to $17.747 million. You see the exact figure there for the projects included as they are completed. The DOE does require that the board certify and authorize the chair and the superintendent to execute the capital outlay project for application for FY19 in order to move it forward at this time. If our plans change, there is a process to amend it at a later date. Approval of this resolution will allow us to comply with the DOE's requirements and move forward with submitting the FY19 capital outlay application, and thus we recommend that you approve the resolution certifying the FY19 capital outlay application.
All right, consent agenda. All right, number 3.
Agenda item 3, recommendation to approve easements for Ackworth Elementary School, Barber Middle School, Brumbia Elementary School, East Cobb Middle School, Cheatham Hill Elementary School, and Murdoch Elementary School. Essentially 4 easements. In the first case, Cobb County Water is requesting a temporary easement on the property of Ackworth and Barber to replace the existing manholes. Apparently the state of the art in manholes now is a composite and not metal, so they're replacing those and doing some work there. The DOT, Cobb DOT, is requesting a right-of-way for roadway construction at Brumbie Elementary in East Cobb at the replacement location, new curbing, gutters, and sidewalks. That should be completed, if approved, June of 18. And then the Cobb DOT is requesting a similar right-of-way, temporary construction easement, and driveway easement for roadway construction at Cheatham Hill Elementary School. Again, new curbing, gutters, and sidewalks at the entrance to Cheatham Hill. That should be completed approximately July of 18, if approved. And then Georgia Power is requesting an underground easement at Murdoch Elementary School in order to provide underground power to a new portable on the property. These are, of course, necessary to replace the manhole covers, perform the the roadway work at the 2 schools, and provide permanent electricity to the portable at Murdoch. We're recommending you approve all 4 of these easements at no cost to the district.
All right, with no objection, consent. Okay.
Agenda item number 4, recommendation for approval to award a contract for demolition at Walton High School. Of course, in accordance with SPLOST 4, Walton is scheduled to receive a replacement school as per the attached facility summary you have and highlighted there. As we well know, Stage 1 has been completed. It's now time to demolish the existing main school building, the old classroom building, if you will. We have to accomplish that in order to complete Stage 2 of the project, which is construction of the athletic and performing arts spaces. We're recommending that you award the bid in the amount of $3.584 million. You see the exact number there, to Triad Construction out of College Park, Georgia. And that will then authorize the superintendent to execute the contract for demolition. That'll begin in October and should be concluded approximately February of 18, and will allow us to remain on pace in this project. Available for any questions.
Mr. Banks.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Adams, can you give us some details as to what portion of the existing facility will be demolished?
Sure. And I hate to refer to it as old, but the old classroom building, which is the largest building there on campus, is what you'd consider the main older building. If you're facing the front of the new building, it'll be the building to your left. That building will be demolished. We will, for now, leave the gym and theater in place, but that old classroom building will be demolished, and that will be the new location for the new gym and theater complex.
Well, the old media center, the principal's area, and will they be demolished also, or will they remain?
No, I believe those are both under the roof of that building, so they would. The gym and theater will remain for now, but everything else under that old building roof, if you will be demolished.
Okay, so that hallway that where the theater is, and the main hallway going to the cafeteria and to the gym will remain? How will that be closed off?
To answer your first question, if it's under the roof of the existing building and not under the existing gym and theater, it will be demolished. But part of what makes this process complex is we do have to deal with not only the new building, which is connected to the old building, but also the gym and theater, which remain in place, which is connected to the old building. They'll take great pains to seal those off from the elements, but also to allow students to continue to use those safely as need be. But we have architects and construction folks, and Judah McNeil is doing a wonderful job of being involved in this process to make sure that we can do everything right for students. So they have a way to do that.
Okay, so when we when we approve and construct the new gym, theater, where will they be positioned?
The new gym and theater, it'll be in the footprint currently occupied by the old building. It'll be a bit smaller because it'll be 2 stories instead of 1, but it'll be essentially in the footprint of the current old building, if you will.
Okay, and then we'll demolish the gym, theaters, and the practice rooms.
Yes, sir.
I assume the cafeteria will be gone on the first demolition.
Yes, sir. Sequentially, we do the demolition of the old building, the existing building now. Then we build the gym and theater, and then we come back. Once those are ready, then we demolish the existing gym and theater, and then we do the final completion after that, some additional parking, the Raider Walk, landscaping, et cetera.
So once all this is complete, how many parking places will we acquire?
I'll have to get you an exact number, but we will pick some up.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, Mr. Banks. Mr. Scamahorn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just for formalities, I'd like this to be on discussion. And then Mr. Adams, I don't have SPLOST 4 memorized, unfortunately. Does it specifically say in SPLOST 4 that we're going to use SPLOST 4 funds for demolition?
They are authorized in SPLOST 4. I can get you an exact citation for that.
Okay, but it doesn't specifically say that in SPLOST 4 for demolition, does it?
I think it's considered part of the construction process. We couldn't build this if we didn't do demolition.
But there were other ramifications and considerations when we started this Walton project, and this wasn't necessarily part of that project to proceed at this point.
I don't understand your question.
The question is we're moving ahead of other SPLOST 4 projects, and there's no reason to demo this at this time this quickly. Is that correct?
No, I would respectfully disagree with that. I think there is a need to do the demolition now so that we can continue the work and make sure we're on schedule with our anticipated schedule for this project.
Well, I don't want to blindside, the staff with questions at this point, but would like to, after our work session, get some more questions answered.
Yes, sir.
Is that fair?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Scamahorn, thank you. Any other discussion? So this is on the discussion list. All right. Next.
And agenda item 5, recommendation for approval to award a contract for stadium improvements at Osborne High School. And again, in accordance with SPLOST 4, Osborne is scheduled to receive stadium improvements. You have the highlighted facility summary there. Awarding the contract at this time will allow us to remain on schedule. This would include, when we say stadium improvements, a new football field house, a new press box, a new concession stand, a new ticket booth, and improved restrooms that also include a variety of ADA upgrades for all of the stadium area, including the restrooms. We're recommending that you award this to Lichty Commercial Construction out of Atlanta, Georgia, for the recommended award amount you see there of $2.405, the exact amount listed above, and authorize a superintendent to execute the contract. This will allow us to continue with this project and begin improvements as soon as possible. We think this will begin, if approved, October of 17 and should be concluded approximately February of 18.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Adams. All right, but SPLOST money, so it goes on discussion. Now, Mr. Banks.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Can can you explain the differences in the amount of bid and the recommended award amount? Are we actually getting it at a less cost than we estimated?
Yes, but. So the bid came back at 2.773. We have, given that came back higher than expected, and given that we don't have unlimited funds, we've done some value engineering and some cost savings, essentially doing some more things ourselves, also doing some of this in the Walton project as well, but essentially doing some more of the work ourselves in-house at no additional cost. So that's why you see the difference in the award amount and the bid amount.
Okay, well, I'm trying to reconcile the 1.941 million supposedly savings. Where is that coming from?
Where do you see the difference where it says the cost difference?
The difference, yeah.
Well, it's actually not a savings. The SPLOST 4 estimate was $464,000, but that was an estimate just for ADA upgrades. That SPLOST 4 estimate did not include all the other work we're doing. The savings really would be the difference between the amount of the bid, 2.773, and the recommended award amount, 2.405.
Okay, I'm not sure I heard you right. The original amount was $463,000? Is that
the original SPLOST 4 estimate, which again was done in 2012,
right?
That was just for ADA upgrades.
Okay.
And then the bid was 2.773. We've then value engineered that and going to do some of the work in-house, $368,000 worth in-house, which reduces the recommended award amount to the 2.405.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Wheeler.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Adams, you said that Osborne is the field house and stadium improvements. What are we talking about, stadium improvements? What?
Well, the football field house, and then also the new a new press box, and the new concession stand, and a new ticket booth, and then improved restrooms, and then everything, of course, that we'll put in will be ADA compliant as well, not just the restrooms, but all the other facilities compliant with ADA as well. So essentially, when we say new stadium, the facilities at the stadium, not just the press box or the field house, press box, field out, concessions, ticket booth, and restrooms.
I was just curious because some of our newer high schools, it was my understanding that some of these things weren't paid for through SPLOST. Community or the school had to pay for like stadium seats and things, or.
Well, we're not improving. We're not doing anything with the seats. This is for the buildings.
So if it's already there, then it can be fixed?
Yeah, the seats are functional, but this, for example, the press box is in not great shape, and we need to replace that press box. Some of this also is going to be required to do the other work at the school as well, but we're not going to be doing anything like the seats or the things that you're referencing that would have been done. Typically, you see at stadiums, you see a lot of time the visitor seats will be paid for by donations.
Yeah, they're not usually
included,
big enough to field these mega high schools.
Correct. We will not be doing anything with to install new seats or anything like that. There may be a little work with the seats to make sure they're ADA compliant with some ramps, because some of these older stadiums are not as ADA compliant as we might like, but we're not replacing the seats.
Okay, thank you.
All right, any other questions? Okay, so this. All right, Ms. Thayer.
Sorry. When you worked on the contract, did you I know you had to work to get the contract in line with our specs and things, and you said you put some of the projects in-house. Did we cut any corners on any of those?
No, they'll be done still to our specs.
Okay.
And our
but nothing
maintenance.
was cut out?
No, ma'am.
Okay.
They're still going to get a great product. They'll get the same thing that they would have gotten had the entire contract been awarded to the vendor. But in this case, we're going to do some of it in-house with our own people. We still, obviously, since there are folks, we'll still have a great deal of control over that to make sure that it's up to the quality we need them to be.
Great. I may ask that question again tonight when this comes up.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Thayer. Anything else? All right. We're up to number 6.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chair, members of the board, I'm going to ask Dr. Davis, a.k.a. Mary Elizabeth, to come forward and bring the next item dealing with CTAE.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, Mr. Superintendent, agenda item number 6 is the recommendation for the approval of the FY18 local plan application for vocational and technical education. This item represents the annual requirement for access to the Perkins Fund grants that fund our Career Technical and Agricultural Education, or CTAE, program. I'm available for any questions.
All right, no questions? All right, it'll go on the consent agenda. Mr. Banks.
Can you explain what this money is actually used for? What kind of program do we have that these funds are used for?
Sure. So first of all, in Cobb County, we offer CTAE programming at each one of our 16 high schools. We have career pathways offered for each one of our students to access in high school. As a matter of fact, we actually have more than 50% of high school students currently enrolled in a CTAE class, and over the last 3 years, we've had an increase in 500 career pathway completers. The funds through Perkins can be used really to support the unique equipment and lab requirements associated with offering this type of programming. It modernizes the classrooms through advanced technology. We can purchase lab equipment. We have the opportunity to provide professional development to our CTAE teachers specifically, and we allow the investment in end-of-pathway assessments and any type of skills-based assessments can leverage this funding source.
All right, thank you, Mr. Banks. All right, so we should put that on consent agenda. All right, item number 7, please.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chair, members of the board, I'm going to ask Alice Stouter to come forward and bring us the information about the 21st Century Community Learning Center.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, Mr. Vice Chair, members of the board, and Mr. Superintendent. The board and superintendent are required by the Georgia DOE to acknowledge receipt of grants and grant funding. The superintendent is recommending to the board the approval of the Georgia Department of Education 21st Century Community Learning Centers grant. I'm happy to report to you today the district received $756,341 for the purpose of competitive grants written and secured by schools within the district. These funds are already secured and encumbered by the provisions of the grant. Part of this funding will go towards a new 21st Century grant called Building Bridges for Early Success that is being implemented at Riverside Primary. For the new grant, the funds received are in the first year of the 5-year award period. We are pleased to report that the Georgia DOE awarded funding as follows. Riverside Primary, $240,620, with the purpose of addressing the lagging achievement in core academic subjects such as reading and math, while offering a broader array of enrichment opportunities for families, reading, language arts, science, in an after-school program providing homework support, academic, and culturally enriched activities. This new grant was written and earned by the faculty and staff of Riverside Primary, led by Dr. Doris Billups, and the Cobb County School District Office Grants Administration, led by Assistant Superintendent Dr. Isan Katula, Dr. Grant Manager Cindy Nichols, and Financial Office General Account Karen Meeks. In addition to the new one at Riverside Primary, we still have a continuation for 2 existing 21st Century programs. Funds received are in the 4th year of the 5-year grant award program. We are pleased to report that the Georgia DOE awarded funding as follows. Campbell High School, the Spartan Diplomat Academy, in Mrs. Thayer's post received $166,028 with the purpose of addressing the lagging achievement in the areas of math, language arts, and science. Special emphasis is given to students with disabilities and English language learners through teacher-led tutoring and technology assistance after school. Students will receive exposure to new and engaging STEM models with access to hands-on activities after school. Reach for the Stars program with Baker Elementary, Ackworth Elementary, and Barber Middle School, in Mr. Scamahorn's post, received $349,693 for the purpose of addressing 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade students at the 2 elementary schools and 6th, 7th, and 8th grade students at Barber Middle School. The program serves students both before and after school, providing homework support, academic and culturally enriched activities. Additionally, the program provides opportunities for literacy-related educational development for families. Some of the activities offered include science, math, book club, Lego robotics, karate, sewing, cooking, international studies, archery, and journalism. Mr. Chair, in closing, all schools with 40% or more of students enrolled in the free and reduced lunch program were eligible to apply. At this time, the superintendent wishes to bring to the board's attention the achievements of the administration, faculty, and staff of the schools mentioned above for board consideration and acknowledging receipt of the funds. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and members of the board.
Thank you. Any discussion? Mr. Banks' fingers up is there. Do you have something? All right, Mr. Banks.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Does any of this pertain to the bridge program grants that we are using during the summer, or is this all just during the school year?
During the school year.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else? All right, and this is for consent agenda. All right, consent. All right, number 6.
All right, Mr. Chair, members of the board, I'm going to ask Mr. York to come forward and bring the administrative rule. He didn't get up, so I was wondering if I was in the right place. Sorry about that.
A little slow on the uptake. Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Mr. Superintendent, you've had Administrative Rule JBC D-R, student transfers for your 10-day review. Just here to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Mr. York. Do we have any questions? All right.
All right. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mr. York. All right. We have the approval of the agenda. If there is no objection, Mr. Scamahorn.
I have a couple of questions about that, and I may need the parliamentarian. It's my understanding that the approval of the agenda is this agenda that we're getting ready to set right here, correct? So if there was a concern or need to pull an agenda item, this would be the time to discuss it. Is that correct, Mr. Parliamentarian, or should we wait till the formal meeting?
I would generally suggest we wait to the formal meeting just because the work session is generally not when we're voting on things, even if it's to, you certainly have as a board the option to shape your agenda however you want, but if it's to poll something or defeat something or a motion, I would generally say let the motions fly at the night voting meeting.
You mean that figuratively fly, right? Okay.
Or maybe literally and figuratively.
Okay. Thank you.
Let me just clarify that point, too. The vote on the agenda is to approve the agenda for the next meeting, which is the night meeting.
Correct.
That's correct. And if an agenda item is tied 3-3, that is the same as a defeat. Is that correct? Okay. So on important matters, it might be better to have all 7 board members. So as a consideration, would that be a good? Okay. All right. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, so Mr. Chair, just got a little confused. So are we approving this agenda? All right. Okay, so the agenda is approved without objection. Okay, now we have executive session. I need a motion that we go into executive session for the permitted discussion of legal and personnel. Do I have a motion? Mrs. Thayer has a motion. Mr. Scamahorn second. All those in favor, raise their hand. All right, that's 6-0. We are now adjourned to executive session. We are now in recess to executive session until 7 p.m.